Hello, good afternoon. Everybody can hear me? That's okay? Perfect. So we can start. So before I start, I will introduce myself. I am Gilles Paubert, the Global Head of Cegedim Health Data. Uh, I'm delighted to welcome you to this theater to talk about the subject that is close to my heart. Uh, Real world data and real world evidence. There is uh, a lot a lot to say about real world data and real world evidence. But if we want to have a clear picture of the interest of it, probably the best is to use a use case. Why choosing real world? Why choosing rare disease? According to the World Economic Forum, the healthcare industry stored over 2,300 exabytes of healthcare data. So these data are, in vast majorities, are going unused, siloed in different format, different location, and different coding system. So meanwhile, in Europe, 50 million people live with rare disease, with many with high unmet needs. So the purpose of my talk today is to discuss how the use of real-world data and real-world evidence can facilitate to better deliver therapies and outcome to this patient. So trying to meet unmet needs and improve treatment options for rare diseases is not always viable. Because large knowledge gap in our understanding of this disease and a small population size make the R&D process particularly challenging and costly. So the knowledge gap can impact the clinical trial design, of course, but also the decision process for patient care. Small population represent also a big challenges for a clinical trial recruitment, but also for statistical precision. So it's not difficult to see the areas of improvement and how and when real-world data can bring a real support to healthcare professional, to researcher, but also to patient. So first, we will see how to use real-world data to address the challenges related to rare diseases. Nevertheless, the use of real-world data owns it. Oh, that's okay. So nevertheless, the use of real-world data has its own challenges. We will review many of them and also some key success factors using this data. And then the way forward to further optimize their utilization and their acceptance. So real-world data can complement randomized clinical trials and overcome some R&D and randomized clinical trial challenges. So real-world data presents several opportunities in application to rare diseases before the market authorization. The first step in investigating a new therapy typically involves carrying out a systematic review of the literature. But in rare diseases, there may not be much or none. So the evidence gathering starts with cohort patient identification, so-called natural history disease registries, So, and in this case, the data source can be truly real world. So you look at retrospective chart reviews, you try to understand patient, you are also analyze the electronic health record and history, which can be, for example, patient-reported outcomes or biometrics or biomarkers. So, and of course, you can have a really good view of the patient if you are able to mix information from primary care and from secondary care. So this evidence gathered will inform the R&D process. From here, relevant and meaningful endpoints and outcomes can start to be defined, which may be, and again, biomarker, mobility measures, or patient-reported outcomes, for example. Real-world data can help design a trial protocol that places a little burden on the patient as possible to limit inclusion and lost patient issues in randomized clinical trials. Clearly, patients who don't feel significantly burdened by a study are far more likely to complete it than someone who feels that it doesn't fit into their life, making a marked difference in the quality of data and the ability of a trial to meet its endpoint. So, thanks to real-world data, a better understanding of the rare disease, it might be possible to use real-world data to solve the challenge of limited statistical power inherent to rare diseases. Real-world data can be used to build a control group. Either the historical control is compared to current patient receiving the investigational therapy, or in the case of a newer registries, or in the case of chronic disease with a well-understood course and evolution, then you can use the patient receiving treatment at their own controls. So following a successful marketing approval, real-world data can be used in observational studies to gather efficacy and safety data. It can also provide information about off-label usage. So in this case, real-world data can be used to investigate how and why many patients are being prescribed a medicine in the real world. For example, there any difference in the indication between the label and the patient who are actually taking the drug. Providing that the data is sufficiently documented, these studies may open the door for rapidly and economically assessing the viability of a label expansion. So this is very important. It's another usage of the real-world data. When I mentioned that the data can be used for research and for care, in this example, to be able to play with the data coded for research and for care is essential, because artificial intelligence and analytics using real-world data can help the physician feel more secure in their decision-making and can save physician and patient time for care. You can see on this example, it's like a virtuous circle, starting by the best way to find the right patient. And we are running many projects working with primary care health database, because the GP is probably for everyone, for every patient, the first door in the healthcare system. So that's crucial to be able to work with a primary database in the case of rare disease. So the second step is, of course, to analyze the history of the patient based on the data. And of course, if your real-world data is just based on claims information, is not enough. You need to work with clinical data. You need the patient characteristic and clinical outcomes, and you need enough historical data to understand perfectly the history of the disease. So that's crucial to be able to define an algorithm. So, and this algorithm must be coded for research, because it's not coded for care. So in this case, when the algorithm is ready, the objective is to enroll physician and to propose the algorithm, to put the algorithm to the software, and the software is just to help the physician to detect the right patient. And after this point, it's just, but the physician can be able to prescribe, to refer the patient to a specialist. The specialist can be based at the hospital and can be based in the primary care system. So, and the idea to close the loop is, in this case, to improve the loyalty of the physician to code and to structure the data. Because for the GP, it's not the natural to code and to structure the data. You need to propose a solution for the physician to help the patient. So in this case, it's really a virtuous circle, helping the research, the patient, the physician, and the database, and especially the quality of the database, because the physician is able to see the impact of the data. Because we have many questions about the quality of the data collected at GP level. So, of course, there are multiple challenges when dealing with real-world data. For pharma, it's always the similar question. The first one is about the perfect organization. And what is the organization, the optimal organization internally to work with the data? Of course, it's also very important to plan the operational capabilities and also to have a rapid development in the data. So all these dimensions are crucial for pharmaceutical industry to improve the usage of the real-world data. But of course, it's also important internally to demonstrate the value of the data. And the reason why to design a quick win is always important, because the question is always the same. Is it profitable to work with this data with such an organization? So the first one is always to demonstrate the value of the data. You have also to keep in mind that also important to pharma to keep informed on type on data sources. And in Europe, this market is moving faster than ever. The primary care database are pretty good, but if we are speaking about hospital care, secondary care, it's not the same. So it's very important, and you can see so many different provider company involved in the real world data. Very important to continue to keep informed about the different data sources available. Also, what about the evolution as regards the payers and the regulators? You are aware about the initiative in Europe, the European Health Data Space, Darwin. It's very important to follow the evolution, and not only the evolution of the regulator, but also the evolution of the GDPR, because it's always a balance between the precision expected by the researcher and the protection of the individuals. And for rare disease, you need more and more precision. But if you're able to reach the precision, sometimes you don't have enough patient, and you have to respect the GDPR. So it's a balance between precision and data protection. So pretty sure that, and we are discussing a lot with the European authorities, they will have to move on the right way. And probably the way is to improve data and the data precision for research. But of course, you need a system to protect the data and to be able to answer to any question as regard GDPR. So this slide is also very important, not only for rare disease, but for many different studies. Because when conducting a study using real-world data for a rare disease, it can be particularly tempting to ask what data are available and use this to shape the research question. But in fact, however, as for any study, it's very important to identify the research question in advance and seek the appropriate data sources afterwards. It's also essential before starting to create a database for researchers to plan carefully and thoughtfully how to collect, code, and structure the data. Because sometimes we're just thinking about how to collect the data, but the coding and the structuration of the database at the first step of the process is crucial. Because otherwise, when you will want to aggregate the different database, if the coding and the structuration is not perfect, very difficult to use a statistical tool or statistical analysis to be able to produce robust results. Engage with patient at a early stage is also very important for many different reasons, but also to define questions and outcomes of importance, not only for you, but also for them. Oops. Okay. So once again, when we are thinking about the data collection process, and if we are thinking about the physician, because the physician is really perfect to collect the data, but technology should be an help, not a constraint, especially because due to the COVID-19, a lot of burnout at the physician level, nurse level, pharmacist level. So it's very important to respect the time of the physician. So, and again, the data capture should be on ease. If I am a physician, you have to save my time, and also important for me to earn money. You probably are aware about the QOF in the UK and the AeroSP in France. It's another way to enroll the physician and to finance the data collection in a proper way. So that's very important for physicians to respect the time. Otherwise, you will have a huge attrition in your network because you can start with thousands of GPs, thousands of specialists, but you need to maintain the size of your database year after year. So very important to avoid any constraint. So, but in fact, the real game changer is the data governance. So to have a dedicated team to the governance of the data, to manage the size of the network, the flow of the data, the quality of the data is also crucial. And the size of the team is really, it's not just one person dedicated to the team. So when you have to deal with a partner, so the choice of your data partner is crucial because it must be able at any time to maintain the full transparency of the data. So for us, the positioning is to be able to deliver raw data to researchers, to pharmaceutical companies, but also to the different other stakeholders, the payers and regulators, just to be able to speak the same language on the same data. But we have some constraint, of course, to be able to deliver raw data. But again, it's very, very important. Otherwise, you could have many discussions based on the way to extrapolate the data to filter the population. But again, the best is to be able to deliver at the beginning of the process raw data. So, and again, the clarity between you and the partner is crucial. Of course, it will be facilitated, if your data partner is independent, of course. If your data partner owns the data, always the same question, who is the owner of the data? That's very important to deal with the owner of the data. And, you have also to think like a data engineer or a physician when you try to enroll a physician, because otherwise it will be very difficult to ensure the data robustness. So when you are dealing with a rare disease, we have many cases in the past when we discuss country by country. But in rare disease, in some European countries, we don't have enough patients. And when you have to apply multidimensional scaling, but at the end, you have less than 5 patients. What can you do with 5 patients as regards the statistic and as regards the data protection? So the idea is probably to try to build a European common data model and to aggregate patients from different countries, just to propose to authorities or also to researchers a unique database for patient, for example, Fabry or Pompe disease or Gaucher, but from different countries. And again, in this case, you will have to prove the quality of the data when you are able to aggregate in different countries. And just getting back to the important fact to be able to deliver raw data. In this case, to deliver raw data from different countries. Just to give you an example, we are implementing in 7 countries in Europe, not only the big one, but also in Belgium and in Romania. In this case, we have also to be able, when we deal with the European Medical Agency, we need to be able to provide rare disease population also coming from this country. To be honest, it's not enough in each country to provide enough patients to guarantee the statistical robustness and the data protection of the patient. And again, the solution is to provide a European cohort of patients. So it's probably for the near future, one of the main targets to discuss with the authorities and also with researchers. And again, all the companies are really open to share the raw data to test the validity, the robustness, and the precision of the population. So, so governance is evolving. As you are aware, because I already spoke about European health data space, Darwin. So, in fact, we can, it's a real opportunity for everyone to work closely with the authority, but they need to define clearly a guidance, and a regulatory framework. So not necessary to spend a lot of time on this, but we are all aware about the initiative. And again, Darwin, European Health Database with a clear agenda as the next step. For example, 2025 and 2026, the European Health Data Space, including Darwin, should be available. And also, when we spoke about the common data model, all of us are already aware that the OMUP will be the reference for research, not for care. So OMUP doesn't make any sense for any physician when they have to code the data. So again, we have to manage both coding system, OMUP for research, and another one for the care. And for care, it is different country by country. In the UK, they are using the RIT code. In France, they are using another one, the same in Spain and in Italy. So all the coding system for care are different. So you need to be able to map all the code, with the OMUP. And again, to be sure that when you are dealing with a clinician and when you are dealing with an epidemiologist, they are speaking the same language. Not so easy, as you can imagine. So the last one, as a conclusion, we are really convinced that use cases in rare diseases have the potential to pave the way for a broader acceptance of real-world evidence. It's not just an idea, but it's also based on the feedback we receive from the healthcare authorities. And we have also a huge pressure from patient association to push on this way. Of course, we have to deal with, statistical precision, data protection, because it's a small population. But for sure, that many interests for pharma, for patient association, for authorities to push on this way. So, of course, for research to gather information, as I mentioned, if we can provide and if we can communicate around a European code, that's perfect. Optimizing the current clinical trial, and again, to save time for patients, but also for pharmaceutical industry. It's always a question of go-to-market strategy. And also to improve the statistical power of analysis. I didn't speak about a synthetic control arm, but we have many different possibilities to improve clinical trial. So acceptance of real-world data and real-world evidence by regulatory authorities implies to be able to develop standardization of fair data, so findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable data. Because important to speak about the primary usage, but also the secondary usage for research. Always a big issue for everyone. The secondary usage and the way to deal with authorities, again, is very important. So, and last but not least, but to speak again about the common data model, to build this European code is important. And if you remember the virtuous circle, it's crucial for physician, because physician is at the first step of the data collection point, to be able to transform data into action for the physician. Because we are always focused on research. But for us, a game changer is to be able to enroll the different physicians from primary care and secondary care, and to motivate them to continue, is to be able to bring them the proof that they can optimize the patient pathway, the treatment, and the life of their patient. The reason why rare disease is a very good candidate for all of us. So thank you so much. So I'm happy if you have any question. Thank you. So you can download the white paper, and don't hesitate to join us. We are in the hall 2, the booth X2 203. So don't hesitate. All the European team is there, so you can discuss with all the countries about not only rare disease, but all the different databases we are covering.